Hi everyone, in this video I'll be breaking down the patch that I used to record my recent single, Holographic Smoke Through Your Artificial Fingers. Here we go. So the first module in this patch was the glitch sequencer by VoxGlitch. This is one of these modules that I probably don't fully understand, but I'll tell you how I used it. So down here we are getting trigger signals, which I'm using to basically to drive other sequencers and other events throughout the patch. This step is basically lets you set the overall tempo of this, and then I believe the length essentially sets how long this goes until it resets. So I think a longer length would let this pattern run for longer. This is the default pattern that I'm using, but I'm pretty sure if you click in here, you start affecting the pattern. All right, so the first group of voices are voices 1, 2, and 3. They are pretty much the same, signal path. So I'll just talk about voice 1, but that's going to apply to the other two voices as well. So, so we have this divided sequencer. Now I'm clocking this from the VoxGlitch. So it would be output 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and then we're just taking our pitch and gate information into the opulus, and then feeding that into a low-pass filter and tangents, and then that is going to the board. The other thing that's going on here then is there is an LFO, which is running into channel 1 of this sequential switch, and then channel 2 is taking a noise signal that is attenuated a lot. So I'll show you that. All right, so here's that noise signal. So just taking some red noise, just letting 4% through, so a very tiny amount, and that's running into channel 2. And then again, the trigger for that switch is also coming from the glitch sequencer. All right, let's give that a listen. Now, one thing you might notice is there is a bit of a click that is coming through in there. I'm pretty sure the reason for that is that when this switch is triggering, we're going from, it's just this abrupt change between the LFO and the noise signal. I think I forgot to say that this is going to the cutoff filter for each one of these filters. So I personally, I thought the click actually added a nice bit of atmosphere to the patch. If you were doing this and you wanted to avoid that, you could use a slew limiter to basically to smooth out that abrupt change. So you would just put that after the switch and before the filter. All right, the next voice is the delay voice here. So I'm taking the signal from voices 1, 2, and 3 pre-filter and running into the switch. And I'm taking that signal and running into a high-pass filter, which is then running into chronoblob. So if you watch my last video, in another patch, I was doing that same kind of split filtering, which is something I used in just about every patch in this album. I think it's a great way to sort of get more out of the same material, and then you're not, things aren't bumping into each other in the same frequency area so much. All right, so from the chronoblob that is running into the board, we have another LFO, which is running to the pan on the board. And then again, the switch is being triggered from the glitch sequencer. All right, let's see what this sounds like. So the next pair of voices are the kick and the filtered noise voice. I'll go through the kick first, and then I'll talk about the filtered noise. Um, they're on the same fader, so they're going to come in together in the patch. All right, so for the kick, we're using the analog bass drum on the palette module. I'm just taking a straightforward quarter note pulse from the clock, and then I'm running this into two different filters. So we have a low pass tangents filter, and then we have another low pass filter with a little bit more resonance to it. And then I'm blending both of those in this mixer and then taking that directly to the board. Additionally, then we have this sequencer over here. I'm using the top row to affect both the cutoff and the drive, giving us a little more variation in that kick drum sound. All right, here's the filtered noise. So just the filtered noise on the palette module, which is running in to this VCA. And then over here, we have the envelope, which is being triggered by the same clock signal that's driving the kick drum. Running into the attenuverter, and we're taking basically the negative version, and then using the offset so that when the kick is going, this is coming down, and then when the kick is going away, this is coming back up. So we have this back and forth between the two voices. Using another sequencer then to drive the filter setting. All right, let's give this a listen. The next voice is the noise delay. So I'm taking that same filtered noise signal before the VCA, running into another VCA, which is being opened up by this envelope here, which is being triggered from this chances module, which I'm driving from this sequencer over here. So just two triggers that are potentially opening that up, so giving us a little bit of chance. That VCA then runs into a high pass filter, which runs into the chronoblob, which runs into the board. And then we have 3 LFOs, which are affecting that signal. So 2 of them are affecting the independent left and right delay times. And then I believe this third one is affecting the pan. That sounds like this. So here is the hi-hat voice. So we have a couple of sequencers going on for this. So we're using this divided sequencer basically to then drive this sequencer and to trigger the hi-hat module. Again, just using the analog hi-hat setting on the palette module. This runs out to the board. This sequencer is affecting then the accents by using the basically the volt per octave setting, and then using the probability setting to affect the decay. And then one more sequencer, which is affecting the source. So going between squares and noise. So giving us a good amount of variety with that hi-hat sound. All right, the next voice is using the texture synthesizer. Starting from here, so we're using a logic module, taking the same trigger signal that is driving voices 1 and 2, and then taking the either or output, running that into the chances module, which is then running the sequencer. Now this sequencer is just affecting the freeze setting, and then I'm taking voices 1 and 2, the filtered version, and then taking that mix and then running that into the synthesizer here. And of course, one more filter, high pass filter, and then that runs out to the board. Here's that voice. I should also note that that is the default setting on this module. This is a module that you can really get a lot out of, but even that default setting I think is really nice for this patch. We're going to talk about the remaining two voices at the same time, as they're another pair of voices. So we'll talk about the mean voice first. So I'm using the Minimus Maximus module here. This truthfully was one of my favorite modules that I used in that entire recording process. And I still use this in a lot of my patches, but we're taking the outputs from voices 1, 2, and 3, so the pitch information from those sequencers, taking the mean value, which is running into this quantizer, that's running into this opulus, and the gate signal is then coming from this chances module, which is being fed from the clock. So you can see here the clock, we're getting a 2 times trigger being sent to this. That same output from the chances then is also driving this sequencer, which is affecting the filter cutoff. This signal then runs into this VCA, which is being affected by this LFO, and then that runs out to the board. Now, we'll talk more about this voice in a second, but you can see how these two VCAs are basically seesawing back and forth. So when we get the mean voice, the delay voice is down, and when this voice, the mean voice is down, the mean delay voice is up. Last thing to talk about with this voice is we have this, another switch. So channel 1 is actually empty, and then the trigger for this is from a gate signal from my keyboard. So when I trigger this, it's going to allow this signal from this sequencer to go out and affect the octave shift. So giving me another thing that I can control during performance. Let's talk more about the mean delay voice. So we're taking the same out from the opulus, running into this VCA, which is running into a bandpass filter as opposed to the low pass filter over here, and then taking that signal and running that into the chronoblob, which then runs into the board. Here, the filter modulation is being affected by an LFO, and then you can see that I'm using this attenuverter so that we're getting this seesaw effect from the single LFO. All right, let's listen to just the mean voice first, and then we'll add the mean delay voice. All right, and now we can listen to everything together.